everyone to the producers panel. Today we have Lauren Corber, Mark Little, and Nigel Downer, all very experienced web series producers. So starting out, guys, tell us what initially drew you to web series. Why'd you get into it? Why'd you start? Ladies first.
Muted here. Hi. So why did I get into web series? I mean, it just sort of happened and I sort of fell into it. Basically, I used to be an entertainment lawyer and I produced on the side. And I decided that I was going to apply to the Canadian Film Center. And if I got in, I was meant to be a producer. So I did that. And when I was done, I thought I was going to produce features. And an agent friend of mine called me and she said, I have these clients and they want to do a web series or something. Like, would you talk to them? So I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I ended up talking to them and they were the creators of My 90-Year-Old Roommate. And that's how I got involved in web series. And since then I've produced 3 other shows and 8 seasons in total. It's been a lot. So yeah.
Never looked.
So I guess it was meant to be.
Yep. Good thing you got into the CFC.
So.
All right. And Nigel, how about you? How'd you get into web series?
Hello, everyone. I got into web series because CBC told us to. Okay, Goodbye. So, I mean, that's really the short answer. Bit Playas, which is the web series that Chris Siddiqui and myself wrote, Chris being the creator of the series. Our initial pitch was for a 22-minute, 30-minute TV show. So CBC took that and they thought about it long and hard, which is probably about 2 or 3 days, and then came back at us and were like, you know what, it doesn't quite fit in our TV programming. So, but we would love to have it for our web portal for CBC Gem, and the rest is history. However, I shall say that Lauren and I have a connection from way back because I was also in my 90-year-old virgin, my 90-year-old roommate.
That would be.
I was like, I'm not going to stop myself from saying it. We all know that's what I was going to say. So that was kind of like part of my first foray into the web world, which was really a cool experience. So yeah.
Okay. And Mark, how about yourself?
I started out doing online group. So that wasn't web series per se, but it was, online content, videos. And then I guess my first web series was something called Dad Drives, which I had just done a stage show with Dan Byrne. He's a very funny actor and writer. And he oh, sorry, Lauren. What'd you say?
He's great. He's awesome. He's
in a Detention Adventure. Is that what you said, Lauren?
He's in one of the shows. Sorry to interrupt.
For the audience, these people are all very interconnected.
Yeah, that's true.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, not at all. So Dan was like, yeah, he found out that there's this improv festival that we were a part of, or we had been to in the past, and they were doing a web short competition. And he was like, I have this idea that's very easy to shoot because it's in a car. So it's all natural light, set up 3 cameras, shoot it in a day. We don't need any help except for a sound person. So we shot, he was like, and I think we can win this competition and then get money to make more of these. He had really thought it through, and he was right. We won the competition. And then with that money, we made 6 more of them, and that became a sort of little series. And then we made a couple other series from there.
Very good. All right. So as web series producers, often we have to wear many hats, and some things are easier than others. I'm wondering, for me, business affairs was new and challenging when I produced my series. But what part, what's your lemon and what's your lemonade? What do you love and what do you hate about the process? Or what's the most challenging where you have to fill those gaps, and how do you do that?
You go, Mark. I was kidding. I was just messing with you. I'll feel that. I mean, let's see. A challenge is when you're. I'll speak for the Bit Playas set, and when we were making that, because it's so small and it's contained, right? It's like the amount of people you have, the best people that you can get for the jobs, but obviously you're working within a budget. So that budget quickly depletes itself. So you need to compensate for things. So that's the kind of bigger picture. The smaller picture is that a lot of the show, like I wore my own wardrobe, or a lot of the show, I also had to, or wanted to, or volunteer to do things to help as much as I could. I did some graphic design on the show back end that people wouldn't know, but because I'm also a graphic designer, I actually went to college for it, certified. Thank you very much. Yeah. But my point is that you're right, Katie. You have to wear a lot of hats to get the job done. I'm not saying it's a gripe by any means, but it's just a lot more that you don't anticipate when you were like, great, we're greenlit, we're making this thing. Wait, who's doing this? Wait, but who's doing that? Oh, I'll do it. I'll just do it. So there's a lot of delegation that way. But again, at the end of the day, you come out with something great. Come out with something really fantastic.
Very good. All right. What about Mark? What do you think?
Yeah, the obvious lemon is budget. It's tough. It can be tough. Dad Drives was a really good idea from Dan because he thought very hard about how to do something easy. And then for our second series, I was like, I want to do a Power Rangers show. And that proved to be more difficult, believe it or not. But the lemonade is, if you're someone like, if you have any hint of imposter syndrome or doubt, self-doubt, or even if you're just reasonably thinking about yourself as a beginner, which I think we all are to a certain extent, or a lot of us are in Canada, a lot of us, especially people coming from the live scene like me and Nigel. I know I found I was like, it's more comfortable to fail on a small scale. So I was like, I'm going to make some shows and I'm going to take some lumps. And whether you make your first, second, like any show you make at any level is going to fail for you by your own standards in a lot of ways. You're going to be like, oh, I thought these scenes would work better. I thought this lighting would look better. I thought the editing would cut together better. Just like so much. You're going to fail in so many ways. And it feels a lot better to not fail on television. Like when the stakes are lower and the budgets are smaller, you feel I don't know, it's a more comfortable like sandbox to mess around in, I guess, when your castle falls apart. You don't beat yourself up so much,
and to some degree just like embracing the failures because it's inevitable.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's like healthy at any level to do that. Yeah. But it's easier when there's less money involved.
Yep. So true. Very wise. Very good. Thank you. And Lauren, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think we're going across the board with the lemon being budget. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely tough. And, you know, it's just interesting, like, especially we're in the production on Detention Adventure season 3 right now. And, you know, this year we had to factor COVID into our budget, which was a big hit to it. And it just seems like every season the creators get more and more ambitious, which is awesome. It just brings more and more challenges. But I can't wait for people to see this year. It looks so great so far. Super excited. And I mean, in terms of the lemonade, like, the one thing about web series is it definitely gives you a lot more flexibility to play around and to experiment. You know, you're not beholden to a certain time limit or to a certain format or to a certain structure. You know, they vary. You know, you look at an episodic series like High Maintenance, you know, which a lot of people have sort of tried to emulate. And then you look at a lot more serialized series. There's so many of them out there, but so there's just a ton of room to play, you know, and I think that's great. And I guess the last thing is, you know, in a web series, like most often you tend to focus on an A story, you know, like one core story. Sometimes there's an A and a B story, but usually it's just one, and it gives you that opportunity to tell that story and explore like those characters really well in that time. So yeah.
All right.
But I'm gonna jump off of that if you don't mind, yeah, because Lauren, you brought up a really great point, and the idea is like sometimes the web, that portal just gives you a little bit more freedom in terms of the creativity, and I think that worked to our advantage when we made Bit Playas, because the idea was just these two uber nerds that are super pop culture, but also into video games and weed culture and things that were just a little bit more in the mainstream on the web portal, that we could reach a wider audience. So we could have all these ridiculous special effects that were really hearkening from video games that we grew up with, that Chris and I grew up, that the people watching on CBC Gem or YouTube or any of those web portals knew. Like, so they got the reference immediately, instead of on TV. It's like, you might have to do a little bit of explaining, And again, the A story, we really drove that A story. There was a couple minutia things, B and C-ish, but the A story was like really the focus. So we could really flesh out both of our characters and the journey and the relationship that the two had.
Very good. Yeah, definitely more creative liberties on the web. I don't think Space Janitors would have been. I don't know where I'm going with this. But like,
so close.
Big vision, which was awesome. But like, you got to like have fun. It was obvious to me that you had so much fun making that. I don't know. That's
True. And similar to what Nigel was saying about wearing multiple hats yourself, we were able to just like hire people that were our friends to wear also multiple hats and make insanely cheap but fun costumes and sets, and probably broke some rules along the way. You don't feel as guilty about that when you're kind of living in the cracks a little bit. But I will say, having made a sitcom now for CBC television, boy, you think it gets easier and you end up wearing all those same hats anyway. Oh my God. Oh, what a nightmare.
Was it
what
just
a fucking nightmare?
Oh my gosh. Let's unpack this just a little bit more. Would you say that, like, okay, how did the process differ? Like, or do you feel like it was just like similar and more pressure?
It was similar in a lot of ways and different in a lot of ways. Like I said, it felt like the pressure was way, way higher. But then because it's for TV, you think to yourself, and I've had this, I should have learned this by now, but you really think to yourself, oh, there's this whole apparatus. There's dozens of people, pros, professionals at every level in every field who are so I can just like chill. I can just hang back. And then you get to a certain point and everyone's like, no, this is 100% your show. What do you want to do? Like, you have to tell us everything. And you're like, oh crap. Okay. Never mind. I got this all wrong. We got to go. And then you just feel like, I don't know. My friend, my writing partner, Andy, described it as like steering a shopping mall. It's just like every decision you're like, all right, I made a decision. Now I got to slowly like turn this thing around so 100 people can like get on board with it. And it's never going to be like a snap quick thing. On the web, sometimes it is. But
so
I
don't know. It's pros and cons. I'm underselling how much help everyone else gives you. They give you so much help, but you just, I don't know. There's something in my head where I was like, the adults are here. You know what I mean? I can just like hang out. And then they're like, no. This is your show. You still got to do it. And they're like, oh, shoot. Okay.
Like, in a way, we think at some point there's going to be this safety net, and basically there's not.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
Very good. All right. So let's talk a little bit about, because it's such a collaborative medium. And as we've talked about, there's always the budget constraints and you need to be creative. And to me, one of the most important things is hiring and building your team, the people around you who are going to fill those gaps in knowledge that you have. So can each of you tell me a little bit about the process of finding your people and like building your team and just like generally how you keep those relationships healthy and strong, because I think it's so crucial to success.
I can go. Take it. So, I mean, I guess I come at it from a little bit of a different perspective from Mark and Nigel. Like, you know, I produce. You know, I don't write the show, so a lot of my collaborations are with creators like Mark and Nigel. I mean, like in terms of finding people, like projects to work on, kind of thing. Is that what you mean, or like?
Sure. Yeah. Like, how do you you got to team up with people and, build your team. It's you're getting
yeah. I mean, a lot of times, like, when you make one series, you collaborate with so many people on that, and then you click with somebody or you start talking about something, and then that kind of leads to another project. Projects that I've worked on, other producers that I've met have just been from random places and around, like Ryan West, the producer of Detention Adventure, and I met on a CFC shoot. The creator of How to Buy a Baby and we met in law school. So
go to law school.
No, not unless you want to be a lawyer.
Maybe we should all go to law school, thinking about it. Anyway, go on.
So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is through like word of mouth and connection, and like kind of, there's different networking events through different unions, which like I've definitely taken part in between the CMPA and the DGC, for example. I've met directors and production designers that way. So yeah.
All right. So getting out there, networking, being open to working with new people, having an open mind. Mm-hmm. Okay, I like that. Yeah. Okay. Next.
I mean, I think Nigel and I are in a pretty privileged position from the creative side, just because we're part of such a big live comedy scene. So like in terms of like getting writing and acting talent, it's very, I don't know. We already know everyone. Like it's just like, yeah, I don't know who's been funny in my presence for the past 10 years. If you're writing a comedy, you're just like, yeah, that person, those three, I don't know, one of them would be perfect. But then definitely like there's this secondary level, which is like from a production side, from a like behind the camera side. How do you meet the right people? Producers are like, crew members. I couldn't tell you. I don't know. Like, I just feel like it's like at that point, you just like, I feel like if there's someone out there who takes an interest in what I'm doing, I'm like, great, let's chat. Let me see what you've done. What you've done? Like, do we have similar interests? Do we want the same things? And then you kind of just cross your fingers and hope for the best. I feel like I've already moved away from whatever the original question is. Like, I feel like I'm in a fog.
No, I think you're doing very well.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, no, it's about just like building your team and how that comes about. And it sounds like for you, it's happened very organically, and you have a great network, and the other pieces of the puzzle have more or less fallen into place. Is that what what we're getting at? Is that
yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. You hope that people know people that they like working with, and then you hope that kind of thing keeps expanding and expanding. But to Lauren's point, yeah, a lot of the people I end up working with are just people I've worked with before who I really loved working with. You just hope that your relationship continues to grow and not stagnate.
Very good.
Yeah, and I think jumping off, what Mark's saying, and it also goes to because we've all been connected in some kind of in some project here or there. It is, traveling that route and then running into or meeting new people as you're on set. And then as you're meeting these new people, some people keep you in mind, and they think about, when they're writing a script or they have an idea for a character, they're like, who'd be great playing this? and then it's kind of paying it forward, and we all just want to listen. As a Canadian, we all just want to create. We want to involve everybody. Obviously, we can't, but we do the best that we can. And I think that's a major difference between, us here and our friends down in the States is like, we really want to make sure that everybody can eat and everybody can have a great time. If I have an idea and I have somebody specific in mind, I will not even think twice about either casting them or reaching out to them, hopefully that they can make the day on set. So I think, networking is a great way to do it, but just be you. When you're on set, be you, because you just never know when it could come back, which is great, which is a great thing. So I think but to Mark's point, like when it comes to crew and stuff, I'm just gonna, if you say I have a great sound guy, great, bring him, bring her. Like I don't know anything about that end. You have grips? Hey man, do they got gloves? Great, bring them. I don't know. You know what I mean?
You just trust in the system.
Yeah, I mean, my last point is that when we had Bit Playas produced, the great people at LaRue Entertainment, they were the ones that were like, we're on board, we're with you, we got you. And how I got in with LaRue was that Andrew Ferguson, who's their main man, he saw me on the Second City main stage years before and then cast me as a cop in True Dating Stories, in one of their critically acclaimed award-winning series, just based on my performance on stage, and was like, you know what? I think this guy would be a great cop. Let's have him in this show. And then it just kind of happened, And then years later, it's like, hey, we would love if you could hook us up with, the crew and the cast and all that other stuff. So it just kind of keeps revolving. You keep thinking of people. It'll happen. It's just a matter of time.
So you were nice to people on set when they had you, and you were on time.
Well, listen. Yeah. Nice people on set, on time. I've been a little tardy a couple times. Not on purpose. Traffic.
Oh, you're late, are you?
It's the city. Traffic,
Yeah. Okay. So we are kind of coming at the industry from a few different places here. So I'm going to split a question up in sort of two different ways. So first I'll ask Lauren, because there's different types of producers. Some producers are more creative and hands-on, and some are more at arm's length, and it's a little bit of a different relationship. So what's your approach to producing and storytelling? Like, how involved are you in that process? What does that look like?
So I run a production company called LoCo Motion Pictures. So our content to date is focused on comedy content and kids content, which are very complementary, obviously. So that's the kind of stuff that, so basically people come to us with various projects and we take a look at them, and for the ones that we like, that appeal to us and that, we think that we can help finance, we'll come on board and we'll try to raise development funding and production funding. And then I work with the creators to help develop the concepts. So I'm definitely involved on the creative side. I mean, more in the sense that they write it and I give feedback in an effort to be helpful, definitely not to interfere. I mean, the one thing in terms of creators that I love and I look for is somebody that's got a perspective and a point of view and like on a story to tell. Because the thing is, you can take a very generic story and take a different perspective on it, and that story becomes way less generic. It depends on who you put in it. You know what I mean? I mean, you look at like Shakespearean stories and they've been told from a million different ways, So I'll, when I look for creators to work with, that's really important, is that they've got a perspective, or as I say, like a flavor, So yeah.
And when it comes to like your creative feedback, like how specific do you get? Like, are you broad strokes, or are you like, I don't like that line?
I mean, it really depends. I mean, it depends on like, what stage you're at, in production or development or whatever it is. At the beginning, any notes would definitely just be more on the high level side, and then as you get into production, then things might be a little bit more specific. Like, I mean, but it depends on where it's coming from. You know what I mean? So I got back clearance reports on Detention Adventure that things have to be changed. So in that case, I mean, it's not, I mean, sometimes it affects the creative, but like it's kind of out of my hands and like that has to be changed. So yeah, I mean, basically like my goal is to tell the best and most compelling story possible, you know, and to get that story to a place that it looks amazing visually and it sounds great, and when it's a comedy that it's funny. So yeah.
Very cool. Okay, and so for Mark and Nigel, you're obviously more like you're starting at the creative level, from my understanding of how you're working. So I guess similarly, like where do you get your ideas? What inspires you? And also, what's your goal? Like, what types of story, like, is it just to make people laugh? Because I know you're both very funny, but, or do you have like some goal mantra that like every day you're like, I must do this thing? So like, what inspires you, I guess, and then how do your ideas manifest?
Feeling you were going to do that. Well, I think for me, the end game was just to tell, to Lauren's point, like as an actor, as a performer, we're constantly auditioning for numerous roles, but the times have changed slightly. I mean, they're getting even better now, but there was a time for sure when I got into the game where it was like, if I was auditioning for a character, it literally was thug number 4. It was just, it was, the stereotype was real. And it was me in a casting room, in a waiting room, just full of other brothers, just me and other black dudes that I didn't even know were in the city, that all looked like me doing the same job. And I was like, oh, so we're all saying the same 4 lines here? We're all doing sick, you know. But times have changed, which is great. Now I can go out for, or the breakdowns will be for, you know, sure, they want diversity, but it could be any role. So the reason why I'm telling you that is because in Bit Playas, it's the idea of, hey, this is real, this is the situation. And Chris and I wrote all 8 episodes with amazing help from some great writers and people on our production team to help flush the story out and really give it a flavor, give it something specific from my voice, from Chris's voice, from our POV. So that was really our mandate for the series. That's what we really wanted to capture, just to explain, hey, this situation is happening, but also, you know, we also want to be tongue in cheek too, man. We also want to have a good time and have some jokes in there and take things to the extreme and see how far we could go. So yeah, that was our mandate, was just to tell the truth, but throw so much humor in there that it helps you along the way, as well as the visuals. Because I mean, if you've seen the series, like it's really fun, and we put a lot of heart and soul into it.
Okay, so it's like you're starting with your heart and like the truth, and then you're making it fun.
Yeah, it's, yes. I didn't put anything on that. Yes, that's what we are doing, Katie. Yes.
Very good. All right, and Mark.
You know, I feel like my process is the opposite, and maybe that's why nothing I make lasts more than 1 season. But I feel like I usually just come up with like one little kernel of an idea that makes me laugh, and it like evokes a world that's going to allow me to do things that I want to do. Usually, like, I want to be able to get fantastical, and I want to be able to have songs, and I want to have a core character dynamic that involves a lot of arguing. These are just things I love from comedy that I always gravitate towards no matter where I'm doing comedy. So I'll come up with like a little like premisey hook that I can't get out of my head. And then I'll just start digging into like, what is going on with this, that it is keeps like, why can't I get past this? Why am I interested in this? Why does it keep making me laugh? And then usually in digging it out, I try to find the more personal connection to it. And oftentimes like what it's saying about me where I'm at in my life right now.
So it's like therapy, kind of. It's like, wait a second.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. The number of times I end up like I'm writing like a pitch Bible or something, and I'm like, oh, I'm just like transcribing a conversation I had with my therapist at this point.
Yeah.
Because I like, you want to dig into that thing that makes your perspective your perspective. It's like Lauren said, where you can have a sort of archetypal premise or situation or anything, but your perspective on it is what makes it unique. Trying to embrace that at all times, and really figure it out. So if I'm going to tell a story about like fatherhood or thoughts around fatherhood, which a lot of the stories that I'm writing right now are, because I'm 38 years old. Everyone I know is either having kids or in that pocket where they're deciding why or why not to. And a lot of them are uncertain. I'm uncertain. So I'm just like, yeah, what exactly do I feel about that, so that I'm not just making like a broadly sort of stereotypical take on that. Like, what is my specific take from the perspective of a kind of like extremely sensitive, neurotic man?
Like sometimes, whenever I write something and there's a character that's like kind of supposed to be my point of view, sometimes that's for me to write, because I'm like, whoa, who am I? Like, what's my point of, like, do you find sometimes you're like, it's so easy for me to be like, oh, this is like my mom's thing, this is like my friend's thing, like I can point out everyone's problems, but then when it's like me, I'm like, I don't know, do you feel that way?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That's why I usually split me in half. I split me into the monster version and the little angel boy version. And then I have those characters argue, and it becomes like an argument that carries you through the series. So it's like I put all of my like sensitivity, neurosis, defensiveness, darkness into one guy, and then the other guy's like perfectly realized, says what he means, comfortable in his own skin, has flaws but is comfortable about them, so makes everyone else comfortable about them. Just like the person I want to be. And it might not be the most nuanced approach to writing, but I do find it's comedically fulfilling for me. Again, saying this from the perspective of someone who has been canceled so many times. And I don't mean like online. I mean, good Lord. I mean more like not moving past season 1 in most cases. But I don't know. Maybe one day I'll be vindicated. Who knows?
I believe in you. Okay, so we have a question. Oh, did Lauren want to say something?
Yeah, we should talk, Mark.
Oh, there you go. For the listeners, this is how it happens. You put yourself out there, you talk about your problems, and someone will help. Okay. So,
oh, is that what this is? I got a list here.
Let's unpack a few things. Okay, so we have a question from the USA. Co asks, I'm USA based, and the Canadian web world is new and inspiring to me. What sorts of budgets do you typically have to work to produce, say, 45 minutes of episodic content? So it's a budget related question. I mean, I'm going to start out by saying there's a big range. A lot of web series are very tiny, and then we obviously have funding here. But you guys tell me a little bit about your budget ranges on your shows for Co.
I'll take this one. Here. I've been working in web series for pretty much the last 6 years or so, and the budgets have changed, and they're kind of across the board. I mean, in all honesty, in Canada, yes, we are very lucky that we have access to funding for short form series. I saw Andrea's here, and basically, I mean, she's the pioneer of web series funding, and I don't think any of us would have access to any of this funding without her and the contributions that she made. So thank you, Andrea. But so basically, Andrea ran a fund called the Independent Production Fund, and that was pretty much the first fund out there for web series in Canada, and that sort of inspired other funds to come on board. So at first, when people first started doing it, they were working with around the 200 to 250,000 mark for 8 to 10 episodes. So at the time, the IPF gave 150,000, which could comprise 75% of your budget. So if you were funded by the IPF, your minimum budget was 200. So and since then, like I said, there have been a lot of other funds that have popped up. So I'd say, right now, I'd say the average is probably higher than that, and that it can go all the way up to, say, 1.5 million plus. I mean, definitely once you get up to the higher numbers, it's harder to raise funding, and you definitely have to answer to why the budget is so high. But there are series that require that kind of funding, and it is possible, difficult, but possible to raise it. So yeah, pretty big range. And in terms of the minutes, like, I know they said 45 minutes, but it really sort of depends, and I think that also when we're raising the funding, and like the funders really look at the budget and see, do we need that money, like what's it being used for, and all that. But yeah.
Very good.
Agree.
Like the creative people, the producer people, you can see the difference. Just kidding. Anything else to add to that, Mark?
They get to have different heart attacks. Money heart attacks are bad ones.
Money heart attacks are bad ones, but when it comes to producing web series, I think this is very obvious, but you want someone like Lauren on your team who really understands the ins and outs of this. You do, when you apply, have to present a budget. You have to understand cash flow and how you're going to have your financial structure work. So it's just really important. There's like a fire truck outside. Don't worry about it. But it's really important to fill that gap, because it's maybe the most important. And if you get to the end and like you've messed up, like you find out that you don't qualify for your tax credits or some part of your financial structure, then it can be very stressful. That happened to me, but it all worked out. So
I will say this. Yeah. I will say this though. Don't keep the budget. If you're a creator, if you're writing it, or if you're the Imagineer for this thing, don't keep the budget in your brain. Don't think that, oh man, I don't think I want to do this thing in my series where, there's a massive hero explosion and the heroes walk towards the camera. I want to recreate that. Try your best not to think how much it will cost, even though we know that will cost a lot of money. But just like, just go for it. And then your people, the production people, will talk you off that action ledge, and you'll come to a happy medium. But because I just want to make sure that, having that creative liberty, or just, you don't want to be kind of pigeonholed by the idea that, I want to do this thing, but it'll cost too much money, because that might suck the energy out of your project and out of that scene. So go for it, and then they'll rein you in, because that's what happened to us. They reined us in, which was great. But we still ended up going to Fan Expo for free, where I got to cosplay, and it was a dream come true. So, it can still happen. It's just how everybody will make it happen.
Totally. And maybe there's like a healthy balance on set with the creative and then having that producer. You don't want it to be the same person and then you're having like an inner meltdown. So sorry, Lauren, you were going to say something.
I was just going to agree with Nigel. Like absolutely, like, as producers, like, it's easier to do stuff that's less expensive, but also, like, if you're talking about somebody exploding, absolutely have the conversation about it, because there's so many creative ways to figure things out. Like, yeah, when we shot the trailer for Detention Adventure, we used minis because like we couldn't get the location. So like there's always ways. Yeah. So.
All right. Well, we're getting to the end of our time here, so let's wrap this up with just some general advice. Like, a lot of our members are emerging young filmmakers, just getting out there. If you could talk to your 20-year-old self, what advice would you say?
Law school. Yeah. That's a good one. Mark, you took off your mute, so it sounds like you've got something. Like,
yeah, learn about budgets. I would say this. It's you know, I talk to people who, again, I know a lot of people in the live comedy world, and a lot of people in the live comedy world are always sort of thinking about how to make that leap. They're writing their film or their show or whatever, and they have this sort of perfect thing in mind, and they're trying to make it happen, this sort of like perfect first project. And again, I just think like you're gonna take your lumps. There's so much you don't know. It's such a hard learning curve. So just like, if you've got this perfect movie in mind that's like your Michael Bay movie, you can set that aside. That doesn't have to be your first thing. You can do something small. So like write a couple things. Write the thing that's like your dream project if you get your dream budget, but then write your thing that's like one location, natural light, asking your friends to help you with it. And know that, you know, on that first one, you're probably going to be glad that you set your sights a little lower, because you learned how difficult sound is to wrangle, or, you know, that the jokes you thought were good on paper didn't, you know, translate as well to film, or the way that you acted in it felt too big because you weren't used to acting on camera. Like, there's just like so many things to learn, and it's fun. It's part of the process. And it's one of the things that the web is great for. So if I was to talk to my 20-year-old self, I'd be like, I don't know, just start and fail. And if it sucks, don't show it to anyone. Do it again. Do the next one, and then show people when you like it.
Yeah, don't be too precious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say a lot of that for sure, Mark. That's fantastic. I agree wholeheartedly. And I would also say, don't be afraid of the constructive criticism or the feedback that you're going to get from people. And I word that very preciously, like, because people might not jive completely with what you wrote or the way that. Okay, let me say this. So when Chris and I wrote the first 4 episodes, we had a bunch of friends over to do like a table read, but it was just at Chris's old place. We were all just hanging out, allotted characters, and we just read this script. And so we were super stoked on the script. And then when our friends read it, they gave us feedback on it. And a lot of the things we didn't even consider, like it was not even a thing. And it just helped us become so much better at writing or those characters or that situation. We could have took it the opposite way and could have been like, man, I don't know what they're talking about. Like, I wrote this, I know what's up. And it's very easy to do that. So I think that is one of the most valuable pieces of learnings that I took from the process of writing, 8 scripts, writing 8 shows, is that, the feedback is great. And if you take it the right way and make it constructive, and you think about your own writing a little bit more, it will really help you, especially in the long run when you're done that season and then maybe you moved on to another project. It just makes it that much easier. So I think, asking friends for help and taking in that feedback and the way you take it in is it's a skill. It's a skill. And I think that's something that a lot of people should really adhere to.
Great.
I agreed. Think about it. Always like never react, just like take it in, go back, think about it. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't really give any advice before. I mean, I agree with what Mark was saying also, like, go out there and make it. That's how I started producing. Some friends were making a short and I wanted to do something and I was like, let me help you. I'll do whatever you need. And that sort of led to another, which led to a music video. And, that's how it all got started. So find your friends, make it, and yeah.
Helping other people, and then when it's your project, they help you. Reciprocity.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like, once you're starting off, like, you want to get out there, you want to make stuff, you want to show people what your talent is, and like, as you get into the bigger budget stuff, that's where like the business affairs stuff and doing things properly really matters. once you've got a broadcaster involved and stuff like that, like it kind of changes the game on things, right? Like it sort of raises the level of expectations in terms of paying people, for example, and that kind of stuff. I mean, it can totally depend on like what your budget level is and what you're doing, but it sort of changes the game also in terms of the paperwork that you've got to do. Like the business affairs stuff there's a lot for sure. So, which you guys are dying to test out one day, right? So actually I did the legal work on one of Mark's shows, so on Picnic Face. So yeah.
There you go. Small world.
Small world.
Dean legal work. Best part of the show.
Obviously. No, not the best part, like the best behind the scenes part.
No. I said what I said.
Oh, God.
Okay, so we're going to conclude the session. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And thank you to these wonderful panelists. Guys, this was lovely. And thank you for sharing your words of wisdom with us all.
That was great.
Thanks
Thanks
for
for
having
having
us.
us, Katie. It's great to see everybody too. Mark, Lauren, great to see you guys.
Great to see you guys. I wish we were in Montreal in a couple weeks.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Woo!